Hello everyone, I'm Rich Lamont. Welcome back to my fly tying channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. So I put this channel together to share my love of salmon flies and fly tying. There's a little bit of something for everybody here. I do showcase a lot of, very artsy, very specific, hard to tie salmon flies, but I also do tie a lot of Pacific Northwest patterns, spay flies, D flies, things like that. So if you've got any flies that you'd like to see tied, something that you'd like to learn a little bit more about, by all means, please reach out to me, leave a message, comment in my videos, just leave a request. I'm happy to get to them. All that being said, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Let's get on with it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be tying another pattern from Hardy's Salmon Flies. Now in my previous video I did not show the cover of the book, so I really wanted to touch on this book a little bit because of how important this book is. You're going to find a ton of patterns in here that from many different tyers. You'll find, obviously from Hardy's, from Kelson, Malik, Forrest, some toll-free patterns. I don't know if they'll actually have photos from the actual toll-free patterns, but there are some that are in here. This does have all the recipes as well. There's another book that's very similar in size and composition, and that is the Farlow's Salmon Flies book. The only difference between that book and this one is this one actually has the recipes in it, whereas the Farlow's book does not, unfortunately. But still a wonderful book. This one I do highly recommend. You can tie a huge variety of different salmon flies in here, from spay flies, D flies, up to fully dressed, like you see these childers here on the cover. So let's open up the book and take a quick look at the fly we'll be tying today. So the fly we're tying today is this one here on top. This is the Delvine. It's a fly I've only seen in this book. I've never seen it tied anywhere else. I'm sure there are examples out there, but it's not one that I've ever heard of, and it's not one that I've ever dressed myself. So this will be a first for me, and I'm kind of glad you guys are along for it. So on the previous page is where the recipe for the Delvine starts. And this is a variation of the Nicholson, according to this book. And it was used quite a lot on the Tay. Now, the only part of the recipe that's missing from the previous page is the tip and the tail. So the tip is silver twist, red floss. The tail is crest, teal, and some red sprigs. Now, the red sprigs could be turkey, it could be goose, it could be swan. Likely they used more swan than anything, but I'm going to be using turkey. And then the remaining portion of the recipe is right here, along with the photograph. Now, there are some slight differences that you'll find in the book between the recipe and the photo. It really would depend on who tied the fly for the photo. As you know, different fly tyers have slightly different tying styles, and they do, change a few things here and there. Now, what I did notice in the photo of this, which is what I'm going to base my fly off of today, is that there is what appears to be either a cotinga feather or a kingfisher feather. It's got some blue, darker blue, and then a little bit of light blue at the base. I'm thinking this is going to be more of a kingfisher feather, but it's not in the recipe itself that's listed here. So that's just a minor difference that you'll have. The majority of the recipe is still there. So that's what I'm going to go off of, is mainly the photo. Of course, I will reference the recipe as we go along. So, all that being said, let's get right into it. So we're going to start the video by working on the wing first. Now, the wing is constructed of, it says in the book, the ordinary mixture. So I'm going to assume that the ordinary mixture, based again on the photo, is yellow, red, and blue turkey or swan, and golden pheasant tail. So those are the materials that we'll be using today. So we'll get some red turkey here. And we're only going to do 4 or 5 sprigs of each. I think 4 is good. This fly is approximately a 6.0, so 4 is good. Anything less, yeah, I'm sure that would work just fine. But this is going to be more of a quote-unquote modern interpretation, where it's going to be a little bit larger and for a frame. So the wing will be a little bit chunkier. In this case, I'm using four sprigs of each. Now this one I'm going to clip 5 on this side. I'm going to show you why. It might be somewhat difficult to see. You see that separation right there? That's a fiber that is broken. So we're going to weed that one out. And that's really simple. You just separate. Take 2 off. Separate out the broken one, as you can see right there. And then we'll just marry these 2 back together. And then the golden pheasant tail. For a 6.0, we'll need some pretty long golden pheasant tail. And I'll go that's 6 pieces. I'll take that right over to the hook really quick, make sure that's going to be long enough. That's pretty close. And then the other side, same thing. Take our 6. All right. Now the typical order will be just like this. So we'll take the blue, marry the yellow on top. And red on top of that. And then the golden pheasant tail on top of that. That's one side. And just repeat. Blue, yellow, red, golden pheasant tail. I suppose you could change the interpretation a little bit if you'd like and add some bustard or something instead of the golden pheasant tail, especially if you're doing it on a larger hook. Finding golden pheasant tail this long is rather difficult. A little short of the tip. Just take that and lengthen it a little. And that is our wing. The underwing is going to be, in the photo it looks like it's white tip turkey, but it actually has such a minute amount of white tip on it that it looks mostly like wild turkey, so that's what I'm actually going to use for my underwing, is just some brown turkey. And we'll get to that when we go to mount the wing. So we'll leave that there. Let's head over to the vise and get the rest of the fly started. Okay, welcome over to the vise. So the tip is silver twist. Now the silver twist I'm using is Uni French. Show you the label here. This is pretty much the only silver twist I've been able to source, other than some vintage stuff, but it doesn't seem like very many make a good silver twist. Now the gut comes right up to about here, so I'm gonna wrap that silver twist right up to that point, and that'll help kind of take up that gap. And we'll only do a couple of turns of it, seeing as how it's a little on the thick side. I'll go 3. And then you can take that and tie that right back up to the same spot before clipping it off. Nice thing about silver twist is that it will burnish out rather nicely. And like I always say in my videos, have a pair of scissors that you have reserved for cutting tinsel. Don't ruin your good scissors doing that. And the tag is red floss. So for this, I'm just going to use some Japanese silk. I'm straightening out some of those fibers. Thread out of the way. We'll wrap that back to the silver twist and then make our way back forward again. This tag is a little on the shorter side. I've kind of grown accustomed to shorter tags, and I rather like the way they look. So you could make it a little bit longer and stretch the tip and tag back a little bit closer to this this barb gutter. Go ahead and clip off the rest. The tail. Golden pheasant. That's just a full golden pheasant crest. Now the photo shows one that's a bit flatter than this. I'm actually going to wet this a little bit and just kind of try to flatten it out a little. The one in the photo kind of shows a tail more similar to this, which is okay, but for the look that I'm going for, I want a little bit more separation in the fibers. So I'm going to go with a little bit of a larger tail, one that's a little bit more open. And hopefully I'm making the right choice here. Once you've lined up the tail, right where your tie-in point is going to be, pull away those fibers and then trim them away with your scissors. Trimming them leaves those little stubbles, and those little stubbles will help your thread hold it to the hook better. Shorten those up a little more. Now if you do try this and you have issues with your tail, you can always use your pliers and flatten the rachis on the tail, and that should help That should help hold it to the hook a little bit better. Not entirely happy with that. The process for a fishing fly is much simpler. When it's a show fly you're after, something for your wall, every detail matters. Now, the tail veiling was teal and red sprigs. Got a couple of red sprigs here. Two or three would be just fine. I'll tie the red sprigs in first. I seem to want to separate, which I don't like. Yeah, it's a little better, I think. And then I just have what's left over from teal feather, so you can just use a little bit of that from both sides. Again, just a few. You don't need very many of these. Set that right on the top of the sprigs. I like that. The first butt section is black ostrich herl. It's pretty common for most of these flies. Take just a little bit of wax. Now you take your piece of ostrich herl and clip it off of the stem of the plume. Now some people like to strip them off. You can do that if you like. I like to just clip it, and that leaves kind of like a little curled end there. I strip off just a tiny bit of the base and tie it in with the fuzzy side facing up and the quill part facing down. And now we have enough wraps on there, we can remove the rest of this. Now take your piece of herl, pull it all the way forward so it's parallel with the hook, and then straight up, and that should align you perfectly to start wrapping your butt. You want these to be nice touching turns. Tie that off. Now the rear butt section, the body is going to be 3 equal sections. That's why I've chosen this hook, which has a much longer shank. By the way, this hook is about a 6.0 and is a Lars Møller handmade hook. The style of the hook I'm not 100% sure on. It does resemble a Harrison Bartlett, or excuse me, Harrison Bartlett. I've always made that mistake. But it does seem to resemble a Harrison Bartlett quite a bit. But when purchasing the hook, there was no name on it as to the actual style. But it does have much longer shank than a typical Harrison Bartlett, so that's why I chose this one. Alright, so the body in this is going to be 3 sections. The rear section is yellow and black silk, the middle section is silver tinsel, and the front section is black seal's fur. Excuse me, black wool. So you could use black seal's fur, you could use black wool. As far as wool goes, you can use Berlin wool, you can use, you could even use just a knitting yarn if you can't find Berlin wool. It does seem to be a little bit harder to find these days. I know Bill Bailey on Facebook, he is William Bailey. He does dye some of these, but what he has in stock, I couldn't tell you, to be honest. But he does have some wonderful stuff. Alright, so this rear section is yellow and black silk and is ribbed with some gold tinsel. Scratch that, silver tinsel. Evidently I need to read a little bit better. I don't have my glasses. Hang on, let me grab those. Okay. So, being a smaller section of the body, for the ribbing, it's going to be 2 turns over the yellow, 2 turns over the black. So that's going to put it to about here. And for that to have 4 turns of tinsel, I think I'm going to use either a small or an extra small. Let's see what the small looks like up against the... Yeah, I'm going to go with the extra small just to... I feel like it's going to need something a little bit finer. So I'm using Vivus extra small tinsel. Tie that in first. We tie that in on the quartering away side from you, so roll it to the other side. And that, I guess it's not necessarily a requirement, especially on a fishing fly, but for dressing purposes, it gives it a better reveal when you go to wrap your tinsel. That way you don't see the start of the tinsel. And you can wet this ostrich reel and kind of push it back a little bit. That'll get it out of your way. So the silk I'm using is just also some yellow Japanese silk. And just like we did with the tag, we'll wrap it backwards to the butt and then wrap it again forward. I'm going to go a little bit past the tie-in point, and then when we tie in the black, we'll go over that yellow just a little bit, and that should give a nice, even, smooth transition. Oh, there goes that thread. That was my fault. I put too much tension on it. Alright, so let's see if I can salvage this. Nope. Not much anyway. Take this thread out of the way. And then we'll just use some hackle pliers to keep tension on that floss while we tie the thread back in. Help away the excess, and we're back in business. There is a slight piece, a little, there we go. There's a little piece of the floss was sticking off. Alright, so the next portion is black silk. So we'll go forward just a bit. And we'll just do the same thing. Wrap back to the yellow and then back forward again. Now the butt section on these is a two-part butt. It's Eurasian Jay and then black ostrich. So let me burnish this really quick, get that tinsel on there, we can get to that Jay. Two turns of tinsel through each color. Well, this is becoming too much of a regular thing. Oh, I know what happened. It was wrapped around the side of the bobbin right here, the bobbin holder. That'll do it. Helps pay attention. And again, that's been part of why I do this and leave these mistakes in my videos, because I feel it's important for you guys to see where I make mistakes and how I correct them. You also got to be careful with the tinsel. The tinsel can cut your thread as well. Alright. Now we're done with that mess. Find a J feather. I like that already. So in my previous video I did explain how to split J. I haven't had any comments on anyone asking on how I split the J, so perhaps it's rather explanatory. I'm not 100% sure. But if anybody would really like to see it done, I do have a video. I've tried putting other videos in my comments in the description section, and for whatever reason those don't seem to, the links never work. So if you guys would like to see an updated video on splitting Eurasian J, then please let me know and I will put something together for you. Okay, so now that it's split, we want to have the color side, when you wrap it, you want the color side to face forward. Okay, so in this case what we'll do is we'll tie it and then we'll be wrapping it normally. If the color was on the left side, we would reverse wrap it. And then as you wrap it, try to keep those fibers as parallel to the hook shank as possible, because that's going to give you the best look and the best color. There we are. And now the next portion is again black oyster churl. And you may notice that this is not an even third on this rear section. But if you study the photo from the book, neither is that. It's supposed to be that way. The next two sections will be evenly split. I'm evidently having a tension issue today. Tension, not attention. Or maybe both. Use my finer scissors. Now the next body segment I'm going to take up to about here, and that's going to be flat tinsel. Only I think I'm going to use some embossed tinsel on this one. I really like the way embossed looks, and this being such a larger section of embossed tinsel, I think it's going to look really good. So I can't find another embossed tinsel either, whether it be Vivis or Lagarden. I think Lagarden does make one, but I'm using Uni-French. It does have a good look to it. Though I would prefer if it were Vivis, but I'm quite partial to Vivis products. In case you haven't noticed. Now you can do a double layer with the embossed tinsel just like you would with a regular flat tinsel, but in this case I'm not going to. Just secure that really good. Get to about the halfway point. I'll say it's about there. And then right where that turns and you make your first wraps, try to crease that nicely flat against the hook. And then as you wrap, just make sure your turns are touching one another. They don't have to overlap. Though a very, very slight overlap would give it a better look. But it's not necessary. Alright, now right where you clip off, you can just flatten that right down to the hook. Take some turns of thread over it. Find yourself another piece of J. So you have the same thing. So I'm going to see here lengthwise. I like it. And this is going to be a left side, so this one will actually be reverse wrapped. Just split this feather quick. Now when you're separating the fibers out, start at the bottom. Do a little at a time. Don't separate them out starting at the top. You don't wind up messing it all up, and it won't quite look right. Alright, so this is going to be reverse wrapped to give you the same effect. And again, just as you wrap it backwards, keep those feather barbs parallel to the hook shank. They will stick out. That's really ultimately what you would like and what you want. But keeping them parallel as you wrap will make it easier for you to wrap it. And you get to the end, strip some of the way. And go ahead and tie it off. Now, if you'll notice, this front section of J is just slightly longer than the rear section. And then one more piece of ostrich herl. And just as the previous, strip a little bit away from the stem of the herl. And just wrap, touch and turns going forward. Okay, the hackle for this front section is going to be claret, and the ribbing is going to be tinsel. We got oval silver tinsel, and I'm going to do that, and I think in a medium. Now it says only 2 turns of the oval silver tinsel up front. I'm going to do 3 or 4 just so that way we've got a little bit thicker hackle on there. Again, I'm using Vivus oval silver tinsel. Now there's a couple of different colors of claret that you'll find. This claret that I've got here is truer to the claret in the book than other clarets that are kind of more modern clarets. This one is from a company that no longer exists. It's the American Saddle Company, or the American Flytying Company. They no longer exist, so where to find this, I'm not sure. I was able to find some on eBay. So if you're interested, you know, keep your eyes out on eBay. That's probably going to be your best bet to find it. So we'll strip away the fluff off of the base, and then we'll start to separate these hackle fibers. And you don't want to get up into the shorter hackle fibers up in the tip. You want them to stay a little bit longer since you're forward of the halfway point on the fly. So let's see, I'm thinking about here is where we're going to start. So anything ahead of that we can strip away very carefully. And we'll tie that in on the near side of this tinsel. That way when you wrap it, it'll ride along that rear edge of the tinsel. And now the front section is the black wool. I am going to use Berlin wool on this. So what we'll do is we'll wax the thread first. Now, as I said in the beginning, you know, Berlin wool is becoming harder and harder to find. John McLean at feathersmc.com does sell it when he has it in stock, but as of lately, he has not had any in stock. So my suggestion would be to keep an eye on eBay. I know there is, or was, a lot recently of Berlin wool on there. The other option is to try to reach out to Bill Bailey himself and see if he's got anything available. Alright, so we take the Berlin wool, and I like to strip down to one strand. It's usually like 4 strands, and I'll strip it down to the one strand and then pull that apart completely, so that way it's like a dubbing. It's much easier to work with that way. I mean, you could wrap it around the hook as is, but it kind of takes away from the look of the fly a little bit, I think. I think having that somewhat fuzziness of pulling apart the material. And again, you can do the same thing with black wool, knitting yarn. Knitting yarn's a little bit coarser. It's not quite as fine a material as Berlin wool is, but it still does work. Okay. And I'd like this to be a little bit on the thicker side. Kind of a little fuzzier. With, you know, things like the doctors, you know, black doctor, blue doctor, silver doctor, the butt and the head on those is red Berlin wool. Now that can be, typically you should make that as thin as you can. But in this case, I want this to be a little bit thicker. I want it to have a little bit of volume to it. Now, it doesn't say anything about that in the book. It's just my personal preference and how I feel it should look. And don't forget to leave yourself a little bit of room at the front for your throat and your wing. I'm going to go just a hair more. Alright, now we'll bring up the tinsel first. I'm going to pick some of this wool out too, and that'll give it more of a fuzzier presentation. And now the hackle, you could fold it prior to tying it in. I like to fold it as I wrap. So now as I wrap it, I'll palmer it back. Try and keep these hackle fibers also kind of like the J parallel. I'll give you a better look. I'm going to tuck that hackle right into that tinsel. And when you get to the front, it's up to you if you want to do like an extra turn just to give it a little bit more flair, a little more volume, but I'm going to. Now in the instructions it says the claret hackle is a down hackle, which means it's pulled down. So to pull it down, I'm going to wet my fingers a little bit. Pull it down and then pinch it. And I try to separate it kind of down the middle here. Now to get that pulled down effect, some people do pluck some of these fibers off the top. Now unless they're getting in the way and being a pain in the butt, I'm not going to do that. That's just personal preference. You can. Alright. The throat is guinea fowl. So now this will be the spotted guinea fowl with the bigger spots, not the guinea fowl with the smaller spots. not speckled guinea fowl. So again, we'll pull all the fluff off the base, separate out the hackle fibers, slowly pulling them back so your feather looks like that. Again, this is one that you can fold before you wrap or after. It's up to you and whatever you feel comfortable with and how you do things. I'm comfortable with just folding it as I wrap. The speckled guinea feathers you would typically find more along on the flank and the shoulders of the guinea fowl if you have a skin. Or you can just buy a bag of it and just use that. But it's easier to have a skin because then you can actually choose your feathers. You'll have a better selection. And again, that gets pulled down as well, and then pinched off to create that pulled down throat effect. A couple fibers here that are broken. Pull them out. Okay, so that will conclude part number 1 of the Delvine salmon fly. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, think about subscribing. That'll help out the channel. And also leave your post notifications on so that way when I do post new videos, you guys will be the first to see the videos, and you'll get a notification saying that I have a new video out. I will also be making an announcement tomorrow, Thursday the 7th. Tomorrow will be the announcement of the new giveaway. I haven't done a giveaway in a couple of months, and I think it's time we get back to that. So look out for that tomorrow. But for now, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you guys in part 2. Take care.